Dear listeners, and welcome once again in this regular broadcast brought to you by the Department of Justice and Constitutional Development. But tonight I'm not alone. I'm Lennox Class. I'm joined in the studio tonight by Untate Thaka Seboka. And welcome, Tate Thaka.
Thank you so much, Lenny. Thank you, and thanks to the listeners as well.
Please provide us with an overview, the objectives of tonight's program.
Well, Lenny, thank you about this opportunity of talking to South African listeners. I'm not sure about your opening statement regarding the flowers. You know, a sheriff is not necessarily in the business of coming to give people flowers, but I can assure you the sheriff is there to make sure that there is a balance of equality and interest in the society. Look, I want to believe that the objectives of today is to make the people, South African people, aware of what the sheriff is all about, what is the role of the sheriff, you know, to educate them about what does the sheriff actually do and how does the sheriff go about doing his work. Perhaps maybe we might, if there is time, want to touch briefly about the role and responsibilities of the South African Board for Sheriffs, and perhaps even much more importantly, to educate people about their rights as citizens when they deal with a sheriff.
You are still tuned to the special broadcast. This is the 15th, by the way, of the 19 programs that were facilitated by the Department of Justice and Constitutionality. And this is the 4th season. You see, this department that Thaka has invested a great deal of money to make sure that the people of South Africa get to understand its mandate. This is done against all the attacks that will be directed to this government, that we do not communicate, people do not know what we are doing. This department has decided to invest a great deal of money to make sure that they heighten people's understanding around the justice and its protocols and its work and its mandate, so that people begin to understand that justice is not meant for the people with money. Because so often we get to hear that from the people that are in South Africa, if you do not have the money, you are on your own. You are on your own in the Thaka. If you do not money, people can write all over you and you won't have recourse. But we've been doing these programs and we know that is not the case. Now, let's talk about tonight's program, Thaka. Tonight, but before we do that, let's establish, let the people understand that we have a black belt in this particular topic. Let's talk. I can see people are phoning. People are trying to say, Thaka, we can hear you. You are on air. That's good. Now, Thaka, can we just establish before we deliberate? What is it that you do in as far as this office is concerned?
Well, look, I think it is important for the public to understand exactly what is the role and the responsibility of a sheriff. Because most of the time when they come across the sheriff, it's when things are not really good for them. Now, the sheriff is there primarily to serve, an individual in the society, either with a warrant or with a summons or with a notice from the court or from the attorneys or from other members of the society, and that sort of thing. It is the primary role of the sheriff is to serve summonses which emanate from the court on people who might have had differences and that sort of thing. And the other one has obtained a summons or a warrant or a notice of execution or a warrant of arrest and that sort of thing. That's primarily the role of the sheriff. But there are other responsibilities which flow out from the ones that I have just described. When I serve a summons, what happens thereafter? When I attach your property, what happens thereafter? When I remove your property, when I come and serve you with a warrant of arrest, what happens thereafter? Those are the things that are consequential upon my responsibility of serving you with summonses.
That's great. Obviously, we've got so much to talk about.
Sure.
It's not only about me coming and attach. There's so much that happens after that particular action. Now, in that work, let's talk about in the course of executing this.
Sure.
The sheriff, as a woman or as a man who does this thing, where are you located? Are you working for the Department of Justice?
Sure,
Are you working for the court? Or you are an outsourced service that comes only to do that thing?
Yes.
Let's locate the sheriff before we
I think that's a good question, Lennox. Who exactly is the sheriff and how does the sheriff come about? You see, firstly, the sheriff is appointed by the Minister of Justice. But the Minister of Justice acts in consultation with the South African Board for Sheriffs. Now, once you have been appointed by the sheriff, and there is a certain criteria or the requirements that you have got to satisfy for you to be appointed as a sheriff. Once you have been appointed as a sheriff, you then have the responsibility of establishing your office. And you then become an independent person. You are appointed by the minister, then you become an independent person. You become an independent person. You establish your business. You employ. You acquire businesses. You acquire vehicles to make sure that you facilitate, the smooth running of your office and primarily the service of people. So, two things. You are appointed by the minister in consultation with the South African Board for Sheriffs, and you become an independent practitioner. You don't belong to the department. You don't account to the department, but the board, the South African board, is the one that maintains standards, that monitors, that regulates your operations. But I'm sure we are going to come to that. If there are complaints and that sort of thing, the South African Board for Sheriffs comes into the picture.
Independent practitioner. I like that. So that end of the day, no one individual or entity feel that they were disadvantaged because you happen to be biased in favor of this or that particular board. Now, at this point, maybe it's time for us to invite the listeners. Tonight, I know we've been changing our numbers. Tonight, we are using our Pretoria number, 0800 142 446. I'm sure that Karabo will correct me. The number that you wish to call and engage and interact with Untate Waruna, Untate Seboka tonight is 0800 142 446. This is a toll-free number. If you are using your mobile number, Ntate Karabo, that other side, who decides to be a pilot tonight, incidentally, Karabo last night was doing this program that is closer to his heart, aviation. He's a pilot, by the way. But he knows one thing with a deal. If he happens to be flying a particular plane, and I happen to be traveling in the same destination, I'll rather drive. For a number of reasons, I'll rather drive. So Karabo was doing that program tonight. He's piloting tonight's broadcast. Yes, we are saying then to you, listeners tonight, if ever you have been or at some point in time came into contact with this office, maybe this is the time for you to share your experiences with the rest of the listeners, or better still, try and share your experiences with Untate Thaka, because I'm sure if it was not a very pleasant experience, we have Untate Warunamo that is going to try and make it better for you. Because you see, at times, in the execution of our responsibilities, we get to be carried away and we tend to do things in the way that is not prescribed. I know our guest tonight is going to set the record straight, so that you know this office really is not out there to torment no one. It's there in the interest of balance and to reach some kind of a state of equilibrium. Let me steal the words of Untate Waruna tonight. So tonight you are given an opportunity to raise and interact and share your experiences with us, so that we know end of the day justice was served or was done in your engagement with this office. Yes, the number to call is 0800 142 446. Remember this broadcast. If you want to have it, we have Untate Levi Mo. Untate Waruna. Untate Levi. Untate Levi is capturing this. At some point, he's going to edit this and put it there in the YouTube. So whoever wants to see how handsome Untate Waruna will have an opportunity.
I am handsome.
Of course, yes, I know. Yes. Now you remind me of one young man, but I'm not going to mention his name. I think he was comparing himself to another colleague of his. I'm not going to say what he said. The rest is history. Now you call us, you can really engage with us. The very fundamental question, I know you might have touched on this. In our townships, we get to be confronted by a number of land invasions for a number of reasons. I don't want to judge people who get to do this. And shortly after that, we'll see people wearing red overalls, and they are called red ants. People tend to confuse sheriffs and red ants. Now, Untate Waruna, are you able to distinguish
Sure.
similarities and dissimilarities of the two?
Look, Lenny, let me take you slightly back.
Okay.
You know, you were talking about the independence of a sheriff. But you know, there are certain values that also go along with being a sheriff. And I'm saying this within the context of explaining your last question about the red ants and that sort of thing.
Okay.
You know, one of the primary responsibilities, if you like, a value that the sheriff must reflect is impartiality. And it's also fairness, and it's also honesty. But I think more important to those, it's efficiency also in terms of carrying out your duties. Now, when I do these things on the basis of the law. Once a judgment has been issued by the court that Lennox owes Victor something, and Victor then obtains a court order which directs the sheriff to say, go to Lennox and satisfy the thing that he owes to Victor. That's when the sheriff comes in. Now, in another sense, I become a messenger of the court to balance the disturbed equilibrium between Lennox and Victor. We've got to restore Victor back to the position in which he was had you not disadvantaged him. Now, I've got to do that in an impartial manner. I've got to do that in a fair manner. I've got to carry that in an honest way and in an efficient way. Now, insofar as the red ants are concerned, that is a completely different entity which has got nothing, absolutely nothing, with the administration of civil justice in the country. It's a private entity, private institution owned by a private person, which carries out, if there are challenges and problems and that sort of thing, which assist any other person who approaches them. Now, it is not the court of law that approaches the red ends to go to people. The court of law will approach the sheriff to approach or to carry out the orders of court. That's why I'm seen as an officer of the court. The red ends are a private entity which is used in order to, most of the time, evict the people. You know, if for any reason the people have invaded the land, if I was to use that example, sometimes it may be that they have not necessarily invaded the land, they are refusing to move out from certain premises and that sort of thing. So the owner of a property approaches a private entity and says, hey, Bakhaitso, come and help me. There's somebody who's refusing to come out of my house, or there's somebody who have invaded my land. I want that person out of my land. You see, so he approaches a private person. Now I have got to follow. I operate in terms of the law. I have to have certain standards. There are certain ethics that I've got to follow. And if I fail to carry out my duties in terms of the law, in terms of the ethics, in terms of accepted standards, then I am in violating of the responsibilities of my office.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's the difference between the sheriff and the red ends.
Thank you. And Tate Seboka. At this point, we are notified by Tate Karabo that at intervals, these transmissions for few seconds, it gets to break. Was using me as a satellite platform, but I know Karabo is working on it. We just want to apologize to our stations that are connected, all 60 of them. Don't be alarmed when for a second you lose. Please bear with us. Karabo and Miaz are working on this, and we're back on air. Let's just get into a very short psychological game, just to establish a point. You see, when you want to know if the program was nice, people tend to be very sympathetic to you and say yes, even if it was not. Now, what to do, you use a psychological evaluation. You say if the program was 2 minutes, you say to people, please tell me, how long do you think this program was? If people say this program was 5 minutes, you know it was dragging psychologically to them, meaning that it was boring. If people are saying this program was 1 minute, it means it was very exciting.
Sure.
Now, just let's play this very psychological game,
sure,
just to get a relationship between the sheriff's office and the people. I'm going to give you professions or people's names or whatever that I can think of.
Sure.
Say whatever comes to you. For instance, let me say police. What comes to mind?
Arrest.
Okay. Lawyer. What comes to mind?
Court.
Fire engine or fire brigade. What comes into mind?
Arson.
Now let's talk about sheriff. Sheriff, what comes to mind?
Execution of summons.
Okay.
And balancing of interest in the society, by the way. Sure,
okay.
Yes.
I like that afterthought. Obviously we know, and we hope in the next coming 50 minutes now, people would have a rounded understanding so that they begin to embrace this very important office, so that they begin to know this office is there for them and for their own good.
Sure,
this office is not there to make sure that they execute these summonses, to make sure that you go to jail. Okay, now, to help us locating this good office, let's try and zoom into their responsibilities. What would be the responsibility? I know you've touched on it, but now we're trying to go along with our listeners. What are the fundamental responsibilities of the sheriff's office?
Thanks, Lenny, for that question. Perhaps it's good that you are repeating it so that the community and the listeners can come to understand exactly what does the sheriff do. And it's important because most people in the community and in the society, they don't know what is a sheriff and what does the sheriff do. That's why sometimes when you approach a person with a court order, they become hostile, or they become violent. They don't understand exactly why are you there and what are you coming to do there. You see, now my primary responsibility is to serve the court orders. Once a court takes a decision about a person, I've got to go to that person and serve that person with that court order. But let's go a little bit further. In terms of the law, there are two systems of the law. It's the civil law and the criminal law. Now, in the criminal law system, it will be the police that will go and arrest and attach and do all sorts of things. But in the civil system, it will be the sheriff who will come to you and say, like I made an example earlier, you owe Victor, you have not paid Victor. Correct your conduct, that sort of thing. So I serve court processes, everything that comes, whether it's a notice, whether it's a warrant.
Civilized police.
Well,
Okay.
Well, I'm not a really civilized police. I'm ordinary independent messenger of the court, if you like. So I serve those summonses, just to balance the interest in the community.
Okay. I know I'm going to sound like I'm contradicting myself.
Sure.
We're going to France in Limpopo. He's got a question. And that France on air. Ndate France? Ndate France on air?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Papa Waga.
O ring Ndate. Kitswere Ndate Thaka mo.
Okay. Can I go ahead?
Go ahead, Tata. Go ahead.
Thank you, Papa. Thank you for this program. Can I problem, Papa? Man, you had three of them.
Yo, Italy's on and that.
Since 2004. Right, thank you, we attachment.
Yes, that.
And then Mola firstly he doesn't know the place. I have to take him there. Thereafter, until then he said, no, the owner is very dangerous. I must pay for them to go with the security.
Okay.
I paid them, and that case the security bill in Finland. Right? Then he had to buy a company in Rosebank. The person is relocated to Namibia.
You?
And tomorrow the person is there. So I must go with the sheriff. The sheriff is going to go alone. I have to set that complaint through to a complaint there in Cape Town in writing and give a Department of Justice to go back. Even today, Papa, there is no execution.
Born Ndate France. Born today is a lucky day. Ritswere Ndate Thaka. I'm telling you, I'm so excited. It's like you do not believe. You see, okay, continue, Tatwaka.
The second one, again in Joburg, and until now, the owner of the company has gone since 2000, and the case, I won the case, and he has gone up and up, and the foreman of the company, he brought up the company, and a sheriff higher Joburg, Johannesburg West. The person is very dangerous, he's promising to kill him. Give me the letter. I took the letter to court. He never come back. He never come there. And I went with him, and he was still using the same name of the company, Ariana regular company. When he was supposed to produce the papers, he doesn't produce the papers. Even today, they send me back to back to court. Court then it's going to get pro bono. Pro bono, the case was pro bono. And every now and then I get pro bono for Labor Department. I must be there, and I must be the 20%. In other words, I must sleep there. If I don't sleep there, I'm not going to get help. I complained there by Department of Labor Department there in Braamfontein. Even today, Papa, and a case salary was 27,120 rand. 2002, I won up the case until today.
Bona Ntate Franz.
The third one,
Good.
The third one is again the sheriff has executed here in Limpopo. He took up, I get the order. Then he took up the all those things. Then I took up when after 2-3 weeks, the manager of the court issued a letter that no, the properties must be taken back through the cost of court. Now why? Even today, because this manager of court owns something fast regular from this other person's son. Molempopo was bad, Papa. Total. What must I do about this? All this? Why must the things go back through the cost of sheriff? Through the cost of court. The attachment was made and the removal was made. Why doesn't sheriff keep them there until the case is final? Even now, those people have turned around. They were sure moved for 90,000, and you did help me with that about 2 years back.
Good.
But even today, we are still waiting for the Barbadilla review. Review 2011. Until now, there is no review. There is nothing. They haven't shown anything, and they didn't do up the appeal. But appeal is going to be from Pretoria. Why is the appeal going to be from Pretoria? Because the clerk of court, of small claim court, they didn't even appeal. He said so. They suspended up the guy. He took up the action. Then they took him back to job. Now I'm still waiting. And the thing is, how can the appeal come back from High Court in Pretoria, where there was no appeal here? Why was I given, the papers by the court to go and do attachment and again removal?
Okay.
But they say no, that was wrong. Who gave me those papers?
Okay.
But they are the one who gave me those papers.
Okay, Ntate Franz, we got all your questions, very pertinent questions, and I'm sure you are asking on behalf of all these other people that were confronted with the similar circumstances. And your question is so relevant. I'm excited because this is going to be one of the measures Ntate Thaka we're going to use to determine whether our program tonight was successful or not. We've got the numbers, the contact details of Ntate Franz. We'll certainly come back to him to give us a feedback based on what you're about to say.
Sure.
The ball is in your court, Ntate Thaka.
Thanks for that question, Tate Limpopo. Eric tla try to mix up so that o kgone go understand. But I'll also try to accommodate other people who don't understand our language. You seem to be raising two pertinent issues in the three problems that you have. And the first one, which I hear you to be raising, Papa, how approach a sheriff at an order, the sheriff will go and he doesn't know where the place to go and execute. And then the next thing, no, it's very dangerous to go to that place. Now, let me briefly explain to you how should it be handled. How sheriff create a court order. More court ordering. Explain na hore ke moto o order eling against ene o nna ko kae ene o tshwantse o sheriff a krebo kae tšhelete ko ene kampo attachentlu a tsentlu ya gage or what. The court order is very, very clear. You see, now ha ke kra order sheriff ya gago it's one thing ngebe ile shebile order ebe go that specific place which is in the order of court, which is in the warrant, if you like, and then go to that place and enforce that order. There is nothing like the person is dangerous or the situation is dangerous. When the sheriff realizes that where he is going to execute the court order, the place is going to be dangerous, or the situation is going to be dangerous, the first thing that the sheriff does is to go to the police. The sheriff must get the assistance of the police to go and enforce your rights. You can imagine if Mapodisa and everybody else cannot enforce an order of court and say, no, the place is dangerous, or the situation is dangerous, or that person is dangerous, then there will be chaos in the whole country. There won't be law and order, there won't be rights and responsibilities and that sort of thing. So a sheriff must make sure that he goes and enforces that order. Whether the person is dangerous or is weak or what, it is the responsibility of the sheriff to make sure that that matter is addressed. You see, now the two cases still work on. Kids are a dangerous place and that sort of thing. Now the third one, I am not exactly sure, because ngaro o complain aka two things. Ware how oyako the sheriff said that the property must be taken back. I don't exactly understand why did the property have to be taken back. But then you say also that the court manager was having a kind of a relationship with the son of the sheriff. He bought something from the son of the sheriff. Now, a sheriff, regardless of the situation, regardless of who it is, in fact, even the president of the country, when I am given a court order to enforce against the president of the country, I have to do that with respect, with humility, with fairness, but I have to make sure that an order which has been made by the court is served upon the president or upon the minister. I can't say because the court manager on a relationship with our sheriff, then I become soft. That's why I said that the sheriff must be impartial, he must be fair, he must be honest, and he must be efficient. You see? Now, if you are not satisfied with the way that sheriff conducted himself, there is one specific outlet that you must follow. You must report him to the South African Board for Sheriffs. Then they will take action against that sheriff. If you strongly believe that that sheriff has committed a crime, you must report him to the police. They must arrest that sheriff because he has not carried out his duties and responsibilities in terms of the law.
Thaka, we have the numbers. He left his details.
Sure.
But before we leave this topic, he suggested that he had to pay money for the security. And we are saying that does not arise in the process of discharging the responsibilities of the sheriff's job. There's no way a sheriff would say to you, I don't have a car, hire Uber for me. I don't have a gun, come with a gun as we're going on. We are saying it does not arise. It's totally wrong. Here's a South African. He was made to pay money. Now, what is the recourse? What is it that we can do? Because he's got about 2 cases that are not resolved. To say it was not appropriate or correct for that sheriff to do 1, 2, and 3, he will be left with an unresolved case or issue. Now, here is the situation. We can say maybe after the program, we will conduct France. Or we can say to whoever is listening there might be confronted with the same situation. What is the recourse? How do we assist France and whoever so that tomorrow he says justice was served?
Look, lady, coming back to where you started, one of the key things, and this has been the concern of the minister when he appoints a sheriff, is that the sheriff must have all the relevant facilities to carry out his responsibilities. And one of those responsibilities is to have the correct, well-trained people that must help Ntato wa Limpopo. Then he must also have the vehicles. He must, like you say, he can't go and hire Uber, or he can't go and look for a gun and that sort of thing. But you know, in our South African situation, we try to make the sheriffs as civil as possible. You know, they are not necessarily part of the police. They cannot go about carrying guns and arms and ammunition and that sort of thing. You know, the sheriff must approach his work strongly, confidentially, but with all humility. You see, now, there's no way in which that they can be told by the sheriff that the sheriff does not have the vehicle to go and assist in that. There's no way in which the sheriff can say that Mutwate is dangerous. If a person is dangerous, you have got to liaise with the head of the police, the commissioner of the police station, to say that I'm supposed to enforce this order, and I suspect or I expect some kind of resistance and difficulties. So I would want you to accompany. The police do that all the time. They will go with the sheriff to make sure that that court order is enforced.
Thank you, Ntate Thaka. My promise to Ntate France, after this broadcast, we are going to call him.
Sure.
And between you, Ntate Waka, I know you've got a black belt. You know how to do these things. You will try and resolve this. All the way from Klerksdorp, we have Ntate Tsepo. Tsepo, you are on air. Okay, Tsepo, we're very sorry. Try and call again. I'm not sure what happened. Again, I must state this. For some reason, our lines are having problems today. I'm not sure what is the problem, but I know Karabo is trying very, very hard to make sure that we are connected. Equally, we are having a serious problem with our satellite platform. Stations are losing us at intervals. I'm told Ntate Tsepo is back. Ntate Tsepo, okay, no. But I'm assured now everything is fine. We're flying. Karabo, if it was Karabo, he was going to tell us the altitude. He was going to tell us about the speed. He was going to tell us about all sorts of things that happens when one is a pilot. Okay, now let's move away from Untata France and promising to get back to him. He just shared with us his experience with this office. And we are saying we need to do something to ensure that there's a recourse. At this point, maybe we want to talk about the rights of the citizens when dealing with sheriff. What is it? What is their right? Do you want to talk about that?
Sure. The citizen in South Africa has got very important rights insofar as the role and responsibility of the sheriff is concerned.
Sure. It's a very important response. We are losing callers.
Okay.
Here is another caller from Atteridgeville.
Okay.
Ntate George. Ntate George, you are on air. We're very sorry about that.
No, I heard that they are not the guest there. I'm going to on Ntate Thaka. Yes, clearly some questions because of always receive the SMS, the callers, they don't want to harass from the sheriff firm. I guess can I open case against him? Maybe like a sheriff firm, or the SMS or phone sometimes remove the phone and then maybe go police station go be like case against the sheriff firm. or any organization or a body e leng gore ka kgona go reporta di sheriff e leng gore ba re harassang. And then the second question is, what is the difference between the debt collectors and the sheriff?
Is that all, Ntate George?
Yes, ke tla utlwela mo page ya 5.0 ja le bona Ntate Lennox.
O pasile ka dinaledi man Ntate George. Ntate
Okay, you know what, George? I'm not sure about this thing of a sheriff communicating with people kadi SMS and then ba phone ba re go ka batho and that sort of thing. You see, there are three things that regulate the sheriff. The first thing, which applies to all of us, George, is the constitution of the country. The constitution a provider for everybody in the country must be treated with dignity and respect. You know, and I'm going to talk more about that a little later. The second one is that we have got the code of conduct, which regulates the sheriffs. That code of conduct, sheriff must make sure at all percent, not 90%, not 80%, not 99%. The sheriff must comply with that code of conduct 100%. If he fails, it becomes the responsibility of the board to take action. Once we're not judged, you report that sheriff to the South African board for sheriffs. And then the third one, we have an agreement, I forgot the term, between the sheriff and the society and the community and the public, you know, that the sheriff will always respect and treat members of the public with dignity, with respect, with humility, and that sort of thing. So there is no way in which, if they do that, it is wrong, and if it is it exceeds the limits of wrongness, it becomes a crime. Yes, you can go and report it at the police station, but I don't want to encourage you to go and open a case against the sheriff, because in a lay the problem is that thing ubula case and that sort of thing. The easiest way for your problem to be solved is to report that sheriff to the South African Board for Sheriffs. I've never heard it, at least not from my office as a sheriff, where I communicate with people the SMS or raba fodela. Then if then it means we are not impartial. Then you are not reflecting the ethos of the court. A sheriff is a messenger of the court. A sheriff is like your prosecutor or your lawyer or your magistrate or your judge. A judge, a prosecutor, a magistrate must carry himself in a particular fashion, must use language in a particular manner. He cannot swear at you. He cannot go about brandishing guns and knives and that sort of thing. No, that's not how the sheriff operates. If a sheriff for any reason does that, you have all the rights to go and report him. Now, the difference between the sheriff and the debt collectors. The sheriff does not deal with debts, or he does not deal with debts only. There is an institution which is called debt collection, debt collectors, a regulator, batho ba ba collectang. If okolota motho ba a go isa go di debt collectors saying a ilo batla tšhelete ya gagwe and that sort of thing. Na I am a messenger of the court. You see, I enforce an order which has been made by the court in the country. The debt collector just comes and collects and say, hey, when Lennox, okolota Victor, Victor are umupatele. The debt collector cannot attach your property. The debt collector cannot remove your property. The debt collector cannot sell your property. Now with the sheriff, in terms of the court order and the warrant, I can attach your things. Once I've attached them, you can't do anything onto them. They are now under judicial attachment. And if you don't satisfy the person that you have wronged, then I can come and remove them and keep them in the store, and then after kisna a notice kisna advertiser, then I can sell them. Once I have sold them, then I've got to get the money and then pay you back whatever the court has decided in your favor.
I was laughing there in Thaka because you made a very factual example. Where siya ukwaleta Lennox, you know, it's very factual. Siya wang kwaleta, and that France is back.
Oh.
I think there's something he wants to clarify. You are on air, France.
Lennox.
Yes, sir.
That
France. Tsepo is back, not France. I'm very sorry. All the way from representing that Waka, represent.
That the that is not the Puerto that about.
Yes.
Until I was given problem, I think on Tuesday. When I call it Mariano, till I said, Sheriff, I think if you want to understand all the Basala Conte, Mutratin Salamola Hatama, because I got a letter to Tuesday, like Sheriff, who not take the kid in the party, and it's another kid in the Lamon. So I mean, you put her, and this is hard to column or I can tell you what I know. Yes, I received the document. But now my concern is really the kid in Hagiso Mutratin, Salaconte. So now, if you get a kid and you get back to the guy, oh, to or no, if you give a you, he'll tell you come upon, but he's a fellow. So I'm 30 in Capu now, no. Hantima Colana, I feel to driving into home and the way because of now, concerning I've got that paper, and that paper it says within 13 days. Within 13 days, sorry, the letter of eviction says within 13 days, you must move out of that particular place. But now that letter, that I young that letter because I can't tell us bullets or that's the first question. The second question again, that similar thing is I think 2 years back again. I got similar letter, but nothing. You know, this is but only to know I got a final. And then this is almost to work in a problem. Mutu general sign not because I get because really addressed to me. Addressed to me. But now the person all uncreated that thing. Can I sign now in TV? So only to know a few days ago, another final letter we call a final letter. You know, happy to go to because of Hajahona the first thing I said. But now, even though Hajako court, I need to get the I need to pay the cost, the letter for the first time and the second time. The first time, so I paid that amount to Jerry. But now the concern to handle that letter or whatever this Jerry pattern for submit we say yes, can you this document because now I am starting this page. Now I don't know how I think I should do how can I I don't know.
Very, very, very clear. Before we get to you, Ntatewaka, here's Danny from Likwa radio station. Ntate Danny, you're on air. Before we get to Danny. Okay, first things first, it's either we switch off the radio or take it all the way down. Now you're on Ntate Danny. Ntate Danny. Fine, how about you, sir?
I can
Danny.
Maranaka, can you about the Nadi Sheriff Fitona where Honor, we who now snap the Samututa, Ubata Rasis, Vanikilneka, Bakensa, small claim court, Bare, Chansobate, address Samutu, house and address Samutu, Ganete, how not the toilet limiter, toilet two suits or Kawanakam, Nadi Sheriff to go now, Honor, but Hole, address Samutu.
Okay. Was that the only one that did any? Straight to the point. Thank you. Ntatwaka, as a preamble to your responses, we have a social media question. They want to know the procedure that one would follow in order to bring this order to the recipient, step by step.
Procedure to be followed?
Yes, when you are executing the order. When you are executing the order, to the point where Karabo receives what I know is coming his way.
Okay, let's start with that one.
Okay.
You see what normally happens, Lenny. Once a person has to grant an order from court, he delivers that order to the sheriff. It can be an ordinary member of the public, ayakushko officing ya sheriff, or it can be a lawyer representing that person, ayako officing ya sheriff. You see, now they bring all these documents, all the warrants, all the notices, all the summonses and so forth. Now it is my responsibility to make sure that I've got the people that must run as fast as possible to go and serve those orders all over the place.
Okay.
You see, now the first thing that I do, and I don't want to talk about administrative issues, but I think briefly, let me, for the benefit of the listeners, once I get that thing, I have to stamp it, and I have to record it and register it in my office, in my computer system, so that if anything happens, then we are able to say that no, we did receive that order, that summons on such and such a date at such and such a time. We even recorded the time. Once I have done that, then I send a person. I've registered it. Then I assign a person to go and serve it. Now I go normally with 2 documents. How to go now? One document. I make 2 documents. You see, I make a copy of that document. I can go that person. Lennox, Victor.
That will be Karabo. Say Karabo.
Yes, Karabo. Lennox went to court, order against you. This order, you must pay him or you must do whatever you have to be doing. Are you going to satisfy this order? You see, I have to ask him, are you in a position to satisfy the order? It might be that he's not in a position to satisfy that order. And I talk to him with respect. I don't go in there, skid scope and stoner and do that.
Like you have a meeting.
Like I have a meeting. I approach him with all the respect. But remember, with all the confidence, he should also not intimidate me or think that I'm going to be intimidated. I'm going to approach him with dignity and tell him, no, Bona, Lennox will create this order against you. Are you in a position to satisfy it? Sometimes it can be difficult. And say, who are you? Where do you come from? How do I know? I must identify myself, that I'm the sheriff of the court, I'm the messenger of the court, here is my identity card. Just like the police have got their cards or the traffic cops, the appointment card. Then I've got to show it to you. Then you I have to give you, sometimes you want to talk to your lawyer. I can allow you to talk to your lawyer, wait for you, and here I can even talk to your lawyer. You see, but remember, my responsibility is to enforce that order. You see, now once I have done that, you are not able to satisfy the order. I'm going to look at, look, I see you've got a television set, you've got a fridge, you've got a dining room table, and stoves and that sort of thing. I am going to write them down, meaning I'm going to attach them. You see, and once I've got to attach the assets equal to the amount of money to the value warrant, it's on court. Then I will look, get 20,000 rand, big screen. It's 40,000 rand, big screen when you buy it from Joshua or whatever. Then I attach that big screen to satisfy the 20 rand. Now, if we had time, I would explain to you also what happens. You see, now if I kolota 20,000 rand, I can't take a thing at 20,000 rand, because if I sell that thing, I can get 10,000 rand, but he still owes you another 10,000 rand. You see, now I've got to take things enough to satisfy the 20,000 rand that he owes you. Now, if I'm satisfied that that screen can cost 40,000 rand, I'll take it alone. But if it's a small screen, 5,000 rand, I'll then take a fridge, I'll take a microwave, I'll take all those kind of things. But I'm not going to take them and go and sell them in the street. I'm keeping them in the store for a certain period of time. To give you space and time. Once you have recovered yourself, or you go to your lawyer or your uncle to help you, hey, give me 20,000 rand, Lennox. You come to the sheriff and say, Bon, here's the money for Lennox. Bring back my things. Then you are free to take your things back. But if you don't do that, then I've got to advertise and sell those things and recover the 20,000 rand that he owes you. Sometimes I can sell those things for 30,000 rand.
And you still owe 10,000.
No. Remember, it's 20,000 rand in our example.
Okay. Yes,
so if I've sold them for 30,000 rand, then I will have to return the 10,000 rand back to him, and then satisfy the 20,000 rand that he owes. You see, so that's what happens. But let's go back to Fran's question.
Yes.
Franz was asking that, he got a letter from the sheriff, and the sheriff just threw that letter on the ground. You see, if things were all equal, I would say it's wrong. But the law allows the sheriff, if hahona any other means of saving, sometimes you know what happens, people run away. If they know the sheriff is coming, they run away. They don't want to meet the sheriff. You see? Now the sheriff has got the responsibility. I will take that summons or that notice and put it in front of your door.
Oh, like paste it, yes.
Paste it in on your door. Sometimes you might find, hey, this door is very weak and that sort of thing. I can't paste. Then I'll put it underneath the door. You see, so you will pick it up. You might ask a question, if ke batho ba go diplaseng ba go magaeng and so forth, ga bana dintlo and so forth, what you do? I'm allowed in terms of the law to put that document at the place where you stay. You see, so I can leave that document so that you can see that document and respond accordingly. But before we go there, when I come and I don't find anybody at your place, what I do, I leave a notice, and with my
contact details.
Details and telephone to say, call me, so that we can sort out this matter. I will go there for the first time, for the second time, for the third time. If I find that you are not there, then I put it onto the door. I paste it on the door and that sort of thing. You see, so people must understand, you can't run away from the sheriff. You can't run away from a problem. You've got to confront your problem and sort it out. Okay. You see, so that was the question from Franz. Now he says that the letter was given to somebody who was his enemy. I don't understand. When I go into the house and I find people in the house,
I don't expect to find your enemy in your house.
Well, I don't expect to find your enemy in the house. But if I do find, maybe sometimes it's small children, I can't leave the letter with a small child. I can't. I've got to satisfy myself that is an adult person. So I've got to tell him, I'm here for Lennox. This warrant or this summons go Lennox, you must make sure that you give it to him. What is your name? You've got to give me your full names and your ID and identify, and I record that. Then I will tell the court that I went to France's place, I found Mrs. So-and-so, who is not a young person, and I left the document with him.
Okay. Yeah. Now, Karabo, please indulge us. Only one last question. One last question from Kabelo. Kabelo, you're very lucky. You're on air. Kabelo?
Good evening. How are you, Kutlana?
Very fine. How are you, sir? You are on air.
I'm good. Yes, and good evening to your guest in the studio.
Hello.
The question I have very quickly is we have a family dispute, a family house dispute. So the family house dispute that we had is that the person who holds the title deed is now deceased. But now the family put a relative who has a different surname to the family surname. Now, if we approach the office of the deed or the deed office, it's been over here now, they cannot help us. So my question is it possible to approach the office of the sheriff directly? Maybe they can help us resolve this issue.
Okay, thank you very much, Nete Kabelo. As we respond to this last question, please try and incorporate this, and you've touched it earlier on, or it was implied by one of the callers. Is it really the ethical or the criminal act when a sheriff attaches stuff and the time comes for the stuff to be auctioned? It could be a car, a house. Is it an ethical or a criminal thing when a sheriff or the son is given an option to buy the stuff that the sheriff has auctioned and attached? Because there's been an outcry around that, and I think a caller who asked a question earlier on, I'm not sure whether it was George or Tsebo, implied that the son to the sheriff bought the goods. Is it something ethical or is it something illegal for the sheriff to do that, as we conclude?
Sure. Lenny, one of the key elements in the code of conduct, and perhaps not only in the code of conduct, even in terms of the law, a sheriff cannot buy anything in that he has taken from another person. Nor any person close to the sheriff, whether it's a wife, whether it's the son, whether it's the daughter, whether it's the uncle.
What if they do? There's an evidence that some sheriffs somewhere did that.
It's illegal. It's unlawful.
Okay.
That situation has to be reported
to
the board for sheriffs. Look, it's unlawful. Any person associated with the sheriff cannot do that sort of thing. You see, I don't know if I answer your question.
Very much so. Yes.
But going to Kabelo's question, relating to the family dispute with regard to a house and that sort of thing. Unfortunately, a sheriff is not a lawyer. He's not a legal representative. He cannot advise Kabelo what to do with his property. You know, he can give him information about where to go to resolve that situation, but he is not in a situation to advise Kabelo to say that if there is a dispute with regard to the title deed of your house, it was not in this one's name and in that one's name, what must you do, and that sort of thing. These are the follows. You see, because sheriff is into a difficult situation as soon as he begins to do that sort of thing. You see, so even if he does that, it's not out of the dictates of his office. It's not his legal responsibility to do that. That's a deeds problem. It has got to be sorted out at deeds, or alternatively, Kabelo must go to a person or dilanka the properties, and we will advise him accordingly. Maybe the conveyancer and such other people.
As a parting note, in Tatewaka, telephone numbers, contacts, anything you want to say as we bid good night to our listeners.
Look, if there is anybody for any reason who wants to deal with the sheriff's issue, the South African Board for Sheriffs has got numbers. In fact, there's also a hotline. If any person believes that there is fraud that is happening or there is crime that the sheriff is doing, there is a hotline which that person can call. It's toll free. He doesn't even have to identify himself. He can call the number, and I can give it out. The number for the South African vote for sheriffs is 021 426 0577. That's the number for the sheriffs, for the board for sheriffs in Cape Town. It's based in Cape Town. But the hotline, a toll-free number, hotline, it's 808 00 again, and 0 again, 628. 0800 000 628. You can call that line if you have reason to believe, or if you see a sheriff committing a crime or committing fraud and that sort of thing. Just call that. You don't even have to identify yourself. Yeah. But if you have a complaint, you want to raise up an issue that you are not satisfied with, maybe they are wasting time, they are not giving you the money and that sort of thing, the first one that I gave is the right number.
On that note, dear listeners, we've come to the end of our special broadcast brought to you by the Department of Justice and Constitutional Development in collaboration with GSIS. Yes, next same time, we'll be discussing some of these things. But I promise, we're going to call France now. We're going to make sure that France is going to be serviced, and we'll give you the report next time. Our president is saying, let's make South Africa work. You don't have to be employed to make South Africa work. Until then, good night.